So welcome to Powerless Penguins United Big Book Study. This week I'm pleased to reintroduce Max, who's come along to continue with her Big Book Study. Over to you, Max. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laws, and to everybody in the background who's doing service. My name is Max and I'm an alcoholic. It's great to see everybody this morning. A couple of random things. Somebody messaged me earlier in the week to let me know that it's coming up to a year of doing this book study. And they very kindly were messaging me to say thank you for your service. I'm like, well, I'm just doing my job. But thank you for the message. But it made me think about this past year and where everybody has been and where everybody has got to and all of the things that have happened over the course of that year. And of course, to this group, the Powerless Penguins, the team in the background, like Laws has been here every Saturday. I've missed a couple of Saturdays because I've been away. Laws has still been here, keeping the wheels turning, as has all of the co-hosts and the people in the background and the people doing the reading. So this morning, a special thank you to the Powerless Penguins and everything that you do, every day of the week apart from a Sunday. And I have experienced this group grow from, I want to say, strength to strength to strength to strength. It's incredible. And the message and the solution that you guys carry in every meeting is phenomenal. So I consider myself very blessed is the word that's come into my mind to have been asked to do this and to be part of this little huddle of penguins. Very beautiful thing. And then the second thing is I'm sitting here looking at the screen and my beautiful friend Imbal is in her gorgeous part of the world somewhere in the Middle East. I know where she is, but I'm not going to let you go find her, and give her a big hug like we all want to do because her message of the solution is powerful too. But the reason why I'm raising my beautiful friend is she's sitting in a location and there's blue sky. There's no rain. And I'm in Belfast where there's been rain since the 1st of January non-stop. I haven't seen blue sky until this morning. And it's reported that this is not that this has got anything to do with resentments and step 9, but it's just a beautiful thing to see that somewhere in the world there is blue sky. Anyway, it doesn't disturb me, the rain. You heard me talk about it last week. I love standing at the bus stop with my hood up and hearing the rain pitter patter on my little hood or umbrella. But it's a very beautiful thing to know that you're sitting in some heat outside in your location, whilst I'm here with my blanket like my grandmother on my knee because I'm so cold. By the way, people, I'm not 85 years of age, but I do have a blanket on my lap and I do like a hot water bottle every now and again. Anyway, I've lost about 700 friends by saying those silly little things. If only I had 700 friends to lose. But anyway, you can tell that my stream of consciousness is somewhat all over the place this morning, and hopefully we'll get the content of this into some semblance of order. So as I said, get myself grounded. I am Mags, I'm an alcoholic, and drugs are part of my story, as you very well know. We're in really getting into the heart of step 9, making direct amends to those people we had harmed, except when to do so caused harm to them. Sorry, let me get the right word in. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So that's it in the short form on page 59, which is often the piece that people know most about it because they read it in chapter 5, how it works over and over and over again at the beginning of meetings, or they just read it on the scroll on the wall. And they don't actually ever get to the point of understanding what step 9 is in the long form that is set out from page 76 that we started last week, I think, and works its way through to page 84 when we get to the 9th step promises, which I'm really looking forward to getting to. But in between, we get from the beginning up until those 9th step promises. There is such a beautiful amount of information in the big book about what it is to complete an amends, why we complete the amends, and they go into real detail in order to help us have some guidelines, clear-cut masterly detail, these general principles that apply. And they give very distinct examples, like I said last week, there's 8 or 9, different groups that they talk about within these pages. So business acquaintances or friends, the man that we hated, the person that throws us out of the office. We're going to go into if we owe money, if we've committed a criminal offence, if we're separated from our partner and we have to pay maintenance. We're going into those examples. But it's really important to understand that even if you haven't faced the examples that are in the big book, the general principles of what they set out still apply. If we go to it with a sincere desire to right the wrong, still applies in every single amends, no matter what the reason for that amends, no matter who the amends is to. We're going to them in a calm, frank, and open manner. It still applies in every single amends. So they're so passionate and they're so convinced by, this solution. So being convinced, they're so moved by the evidence that they've put it into this book to enable us to sit here today, to take their examples and to demonstrate these principles in all of our affairs. So I think I said it last week, we need to keep a really open mind as we're going through these pages. We need to be all of those essential and indispensable requirements that are set out in the spiritual experience on page 567 and 568. We need to be willing, not opposed to in mind. We need to be honest with ourselves. And of course, we're going into these conversations to be honest with these individuals or groups or institutions or whoever it is we're going to see. And we need to have an open mind ourselves. Because as we're going into these conversations, the only way that I can say it when I go into these conversations is, this is not about me. The outcome is not about me. I'm not going into these conversations trying to get what I want. Because remember, we're a different person when we're going into this step from the person that we were when we started out on the journey at step 1. We've got a different perspective on life. We've got a different perception. We know from page 66 that we begin to see the world from an entirely different angle. When I'm going into these conversations, guided by my sponsor, still talking to my sponsor about the conversations that need to take place, I'm seeing it from an entirely different angle. And the importance of working this program with a sponsor and using the principles that are set out in the big book really come together in step 9, I think, because there's a number of these conversations that you won't be able to do in isolation. You'll need to speak to your sponsor, not to get their opinion necessarily, but for them to continue to keep you within the principles that are set out within the big book. And I'll continue to give you my personal experience of when I've encountered such amends. But please don't judge me on how I've gone about it. Please don't have an opinion about how I've gone about it. That's not why I'm sharing it with you. I'm sharing it with you just to give you an example in the hope that it might help you, because the reality of it is my purpose is only to try to be as helpful as I possibly can. How I've gone about it might not have been the right or wrong way to do it, but it was what was given and presented to me from the God of my understanding as to how I can change my behaviours, my attitude, my thinking, my perception, and to amend, to change the relationships. But of myself, I'm not able to do that. In many respects, in all respects, God is doing for me in these conversations what I cannot do for myself. And I know that previously I didn't have the power to have such conversations. Previously, lack of power was my dilemma. Like it says on page 45, lack of power is my dilemma. And where are you to find that power? Well, that's exactly the purpose of this book. Without having gone through all of the steps up to this point, I would never have been able to engage in some of these conversations. I would never have had the confidence. I would never have had the evidence to share with these people, because I pushed it so far down inside me. I never wanted to see the light of day. So even in that respect, this program of action and program of recovery has enabled me to bring these things to the surface, to be able to look at them and to do something about it. So I suppose all of that is around just ensuring that as you're listening to this, whenever you might be listening to this, at the forefront of your mind, keep the willingness, the honesty, and the open-mindedness that is required. I was in my own home group on Tuesday evening, and we were covering that paragraph on page 25. And there is a solution. And in the first couple of lines of that paragraph, it's the first full paragraph on page 25. None of us liked the self-searching. None of us liked the step board. None of us liked the leveling of our pride, or step 5. None of us liked, the admittance of our shortcomings or our defects. And I certainly was one of these people that didn't like the thoughts of going into these amends. But all of these steps are required for its successful consummation, is what it says on that paragraph in 25. We have to complete all of these steps to be successful, if that is the right word to use. So we've already covered our business acquaintances and friends. We've already covered the man that we've hated. We've already covered the person that's kicked us out of their office. And now we're going into this very direct sentence. Most alcoholics owe money. Full stop. I love the fact when they get so matter of fact. Most of us owe money. Don't we just? And for whatever reason that is, it doesn't matter. They're just stating a fact. Most of us owe money. So what are we going to do about that? Very straightforward. We do not dodge our creditors. Very straightforward. There's no more moving and shifting and shaking. We do not dodge our creditors. And I do have experience of this. I think the best way to go through this is to read the paragraph and then share my experience, so that we're not getting confused as to what is my experience of it versus what it's saying in the book. So the first direction here is telling them what we are trying to do. We make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. Now, if I owed money to my family, they knew about my alcoholism. All of the people that I thought didn't know about my alcoholism, inevitably they did. I was the one in denial, not them. But when it comes to institutions like banks or credit card companies or loan companies or whatever financial institution we're talking about, they might not have been aware of my alcoholism, addiction, or any of it. And that's okay. But what they're guiding us here is, irrespective of whether they knew or not, we make no bones about it. We're now having to open up a conversation of a different nature that we may never have had before. And if they don't know about it, it simply says, nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it might cause financial harm. In actual fact, it's quite the opposite. Remember, we need to be willing, we need to be honest, and we need to have an open mind. So whatever you think is going to happen with the people that we owe the money to, family, friends, or institutions, You've got to be willing to set aside every single thing you think you know about what you think they're going to do and say in order to have a new experience with God. Because when that happens, approached in this way, the ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Note that word approached. Approached in this way. This is about us taking the step forward and making the approach. This is no longer about us waiting on the telephone call, the letter arriving through your letterbox, if that still happens these days. You're not sitting waiting on the email coming from the institution or the phone call coming from the friend saying, remember that money you owed me? This is about you in the amends process making the approach. Remember, it's about you taking the spiritual action irrespective of what the outcome is going to be. And that was my experience when I approached these individuals and these institutions. They did surprise me in how they responded. And they tell us exactly what we need to do. Arranging the best deal we can. We let these people know we're sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. Isn't that the truth? We have to be honest with ourselves. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. Why? Because our drinking was the priority and not settling our debts, not settling our arrears, not settling what we owed. And the reason why this is so important, this is so critical. We must lose our fear of creditors, no matter how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. There's a little warning, that little nudge. There's two things within that last line that are really important. I hear in the room sometimes, oh no, there's no musts in AA. Well, there's another one. We must lose our fear of our creditors. There's no ifs, there's no buts, there's no maybes. We must lose our fear of our creditors. Now remember, we're on a different trajectory here. We're on a different way of living from when we were previously. We've gone through our fear inventory. We've talked about this type of stuff as we've been with our sponsor, as you've gone through step 4, and as you've talked to your sponsor and other persons in step 5. We're beginning to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter, like it says in our third step promises on page 63. We've got another power that's working in and through us at this point, but we've got more work to do. A very good friend of mine taught me this, and I really do believe this. I have come to believe this, that avoidance sometimes is as bad as a resentment. If I'm avoiding something and continuing to push it back down again, and ultimately if I'm pushing something down and not wanting to deal with it and not wanting to approach it, it's going to cause me anxiety. It's going to cause me, fear. It's going to cause me to not want to face things. It's going to cause me to be unwilling, dishonest, and have a closed mind. Quite the opposite of the essential and indispensable requirements that are required for this program's successful consummation. As I'm using the words from the book, very wordy, but they are the words from page 25. So again, our behaviours, our attitudes as we move into step 9 are very, very different from when we first started out. So we must lose our fear of our creditors, no matter how far we have to go, because we are liable to drink. So the second thing within that sentence is really important is sometimes you'll hear people say in the rooms, alcohol isn't mentioned after step 1. Well, that's BS because it's mentioned there. As we go through the steps, the mention of alcohol returning takes on a different position. what it starts to talk about is if you don't take the action, the alcohol will return. So on page 66, it talks about alcohol. To drink is to die. If we don't deal with our resentments, to drink is to die. So it's given us these little nudges that if you don't take the action, you're going to drink again. And there's another one of those little nudges. Like in the sex inventory, if you don't do your sex ideal and go against it, then you will drink again. To drink is to die. If you're not prepared to, go with your sex ideal and you continue to harm others, then the drink thing will return. So they're very, very clear about the fact that if you don't take the action, you're placing yourself in a position to be harmed, in that it will return. But that ain't going to happen if you take the action. So don't be concerned about that. My experience of this part of the amends process is unreal. Like, seriously, when I think about that line, God is doing for me what I cannot do for myself. This clear-cut direction and the guidance that is set out here and a discussion with my sponsor at each point, I was able to approach these people and agree the best terms. Things that I had been avoiding for a long time. Now, you know my story from last week. You know my financial situation. You know I lost a lot of money. You know I lost my job. I was in a difficult, very, very, very difficult financial situation. I owed a lot of money without the means to pay for a long period of time. And in my drinking, I was very, very clever. That's not necessarily a positive word to reflect on this, but I was very, very manipulative in my drinking. And was able to create stories to get very kind people to give me money for reasons that I lied about, when in actual fact it was just to keep the buffer of money available for me to be able to drink and do what I wanted to do. So this is where I had to sit in front of these people and admit that and let them know that I had spent their money, not on rent, not on important things to keep me alive, but that I had spent it all on drinking drugs. I don't think I'm by myself on this screen on this morning. Probably not. So I sat with these people and, I made the best deal possible. I was terrified of banks. I was terrified of credit card companies. I was terrified of, the social security and the benefits when they had sent me letters to tell me that they had overpaid me and da-da-da-da-da. I'm not going to go into all of the detail about it, but I owed a significant amount of money as well through my drinking and drugging. And as soon as I got to this point, I started to make those amends. I picked up the phone to my bank. I was honest about my situation. I was not afraid of disclosing my alcoholism or anything else. I had to take a deep breath, and I was given a level of humility because of myself, and some people might disagree with this. That's okay. But of myself, I don't have the ability to humble myself. I have to ask for the power, the direction, the guidance to be given the humility to approach these people. And I was given that humility and direction and support to have a conversation with my bank person to say, this is where I'm at and I can't afford to pay the credit card agreement. And if I continue the way that I am, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. I'm not going to be able to buy food. And at this point, I was really, really genuine about the circumstances that I found myself. And that institution were remarkable. I mean, remarkable in how they supported me. And when I say remarkable, I mean that they were so good with me. I continue to remark upon it. I continue to share that experience with sponsees to be able to help them move forward and make that approach. You know, these financial institutions are so incredibly well trained when it comes to matters like the circumstances in which we find ourselves. They understand. You know, remember, these people have been placed in these roles, whether they know it or not, to do God's work well also. You know, they are bound by their own ethics and standards, their own principles. They're guided. They may not necessarily in one's mind or anybody's mind be what we think are spiritual principles, but they're guided by their principles in how to deal with people in the right way, especially those that are affected by some sort of vulnerability or that find themselves in addiction. And they were outstanding. I made an agreement with them with the best deal possible, to the extent that I probably wanted to, no, not probably, there was no probably about it. I wanted to do more than what I actually could. I wanted to overexert myself. I wanted to prove to them that, you know what, I'm not a bad person. And they talked with me in a way that was matter of fact, to the point, and got to an agreement where it was better than I could have arranged myself. It was a gazillion times better than I could have arranged myself. Am I still paying those debts? Yes. Will I continue to pay those debts? Yes. For many years. And every now and again we review the best deal possible to ensure that I'm continuing to do what I can do and that they're providing me the support that they need to, that they need to. So the reason why I'm sharing that is, don't be afraid. Make that approach, because you have no idea what the other person at the end of that phone can do for you. God is doing for you what you cannot do for yourself. And know that God is working in that other person's proximity too. Of course they are. My friends and family who I went to, again, the best deal possible. There were some people that said, I don't want the money back. It's okay. You're doing really, really well. I don't want you to give me the money back. Put it into your rent. Put it into your food. Do something with it that's going to get you back on track or keep you on track. Well, that's very, very kind of them. Very kind. But my sponsor was clear with me. You owe that money. You pay it back. And two of them in particular were adamant that they did not want that money back. They personally did not want that money back. But what I agreed with them was what I would then do with that money. So for talk's sake, I owed someone £100. They did not want that £100 back. They were adamant they did not want it. So what I agreed with them was I would give that £100 to a charity that they were committed to, so that I was paying that back. That I wasn't holding it and going and buying myself a new pair of shoes, which is really the thing that I wanted to do, because, you know, I didn't have an income and I hadn't been able to treat myself and I hadn't got the latest trend and all of that. If somebody wanted back in the day, if somebody said, keep that money, £100, you wouldn't have seen that £100 5 minutes later. It would have been spent on something that I actually didn't need. But what this program of action and program of recovery enables me to do is to see things differently and to pay it forward, if you like, as to that £100 that they didn't want to have back. Now, your sponsor may say something completely differently. I don't know, but I'm just giving you the example of where my mindset towards money and finance has changed as a result of what was given to me in this program. Talk about a psychic change. Talk about a personality change. It's incredible. This is a very specific one. I had a friend. He passed away just a couple of weeks ago. And he was an addict. And he couldn't get to the solution. And a number of years ago, we used to hang out together. I was in diffs with money because I couldn't get money to use for myself. Not to pay rent, not to pay for my bus fare to get to work, just for me to use to get what I wanted. And he gave me a sum of money. And he didn't ever want that money back. Whilst we were still in contact, he didn't want the money back. We then lost contact because of his circumstances, because of my circumstances. But that financial amends remained on my list until such times as I could get direct contact with him again. And a couple of Saturdays ago, actually, during this meeting, I got a message from someone to tell me that he had passed. And over the course of the next couple of days, understanding the circumstances in which he found himself, I have now put in place the financial amends where that money that I owe to him is going to something else, to support something else. Now, I am not sharing that with you from a place of egoism. I'm not sharing that with anybody for you to say, oh my God, isn't that amazing? Isn't she a great person? How kind? Absolutely and utterly the opposite. What I'm sharing this example for is to demonstrate if we are prepared to go to any lengths for victory over alcohol, we must clear the money that is owed. You know, whatever shape or form that takes. And that is the agreement that I have made to settle that financial piece with that individual. We lost contact because of his addiction, my addiction. When we were both compos mentis, he didn't want that money back. I couldn't get to him to make that financial payment back to him, so I've made alternatives. That debt is settled. My mind is clear. We must go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. The most important thing with regards to all of this is speak to your sponsor. Honestly, stay close to your sponsor through these amends. You know, they're not going to want to know the particulars of the amount that's owed and all of that, but they can guide you with these spiritual principles as to what the right thing to do and how to approach and, you know, all of that. I think you get my drift. And if anybody does need a conversation, then feel free to give me a call or reach out. I'll not be wanting to know your business. I'll be sticking to what it says in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I've got no opinion on what anybody's financial circumstances are, good, bad or indifferent. All I know is that we must not fear our creditors, no matter who they are. The next example that they give is perhaps we have committed a criminal offence, which might land us in jail if it were known to the authorities. We may be short in our accounts and unable to make good. We have already admitted this in confidence to another person. We've admitted it in confidence to another person in our step 5. That's what that's referring to. But we are sure we would be imprisoned or lose our job if it were known. Maybe it's only a petty offence such as padding the expense account. Most of us have done that sort of thing. Yeah, most of us have done that sort of thing. And it might be seen in your mind as it's just petty, or it's just a little amount of money, or they're not going to remember about that amount of money. But if you've remembered it, and it has been given to you in your 4th step, and you've talked about it in your 5th step, it's in your consciousness. Therefore, there needs to be a discussion with your sponsor. What are we going to do about this one? You know, how do we make that amends? Maybe we are divorced and have remarried, but haven't kept up with the alimony to number 1. She is indignant about it and has a warrant out for our arrest. That's a common form of trouble too. You know what? These days, blended families, marriages, divorces, remarriages, wife number 1, 2, and 3, doesn't matter. If we have financial responsibilities for our children, then those must be taken seriously. It must be taken seriously. You know, if we have committed a criminal offence, you know, we need to keep an open mind about what that looks like. I had a criminal offence, driving offence, serious, and that was all dealt with by the authorities at the time. I got a big fine, another amends, financial amends that I had to make. So it's like you can't even separate these things. I'm going for a job and I have to declare, you know, those offences. They have to do the background checks, all of that. These are the type of things that I would have shied away from. Oh, I'm not going to apply for that job because they have to do a background check. And if this comes up, then I'm not going to get the job. No, that's not how it happens. All we have to do is be willing, honest, and open-minded. You know, we place the outcome in God's hands. Not what I think's going to happen and trying to control the outcome as to whether I get the job or not. That's not my decision. All I have to take is the action. So although the authorities dealt with my criminal offence at the time, and I went to court, stood in the dock or whatever it's called, you know, all of that stuff, all of this stuff that I never thought would happen to me, it did. But one part of that criminal offence situation was that it was a member of the general public that called to report me. And thank God she did. And one of the amends that I had to go back to was to go to her and make the amends, in my mind, for putting her into the position where she had no other option than to contact the police and the authorities. So I went to her place of work. This was a few years later. I went to her place of work. She wasn't there anymore. But I asked them to ask this girl to contact me. And we had the conversation about that very night when she had no other option to call the police. And she saw the police arrive. She saw the police take me away. And she often wondered what had happened to me after that scenario. And we had a beautiful conversation about the good that she did. We had a beautiful conversation about what happened to me. And she was aghast that as a result of her call, all of these things happened. But she couldn't understand why I was thanking her. You know, when I ask those questions, is there anything that I missed? How does it make you feel? And how can I make amends? And what she asked me to do to make amends to her, I continue to do today. And that changes the relationship between her and I, where I don't have to cross the street when I see her. I'm not embarrassed about what happened. That is freedom from the bondage of myself. And in that conversation, she sees that her action changed the trajectory of so much. Her one action that she took in that given night changed. Well, how can I say it? She literally, like, this might sound weird, but she changed the world. In that one action, her energy and what she did something else that changed something else, that changed something else, that changed something else, that changed something else. You have no idea what your amends is going to do to change the world. Remember, in the foreword to the second edition, second to last paragraph, it talks about the fact that, you know, intensive work, one alcoholic to another, ensures permanent recovery. Not just my permanent recovery, but ensures permanent recovery across the world. That girl didn't realize that her action was going to set a chain in motion that changed so many things. Ultimately, her action on that night, reporting me to the authorities, got me in a position where something shifted, something changed. I continued to drink for another 6 months after it. I went into rehab for 3.5 months after she took her action. But if she hadn't have taken that action, some of that stuff might not have happened. She set off the dominoes in her decision to help other people because she was angry at me. What she was concerned about was the other people that I could have hurt. Thankfully, I didn't. But in her mind, she needed to stop the action that I was going to take on that night. And thank God she did. Because if it wasn't for her, I might not be alive and many other people may not be alive. But I went and made the amends to her. And what she shared with me was the impact, the guilt, the shame that she had about what she'd done to me. No, you didn't do anything to me. What you did was change the world. What you did was change my life. What you did was change my attitude. How can I make amends to you for that? Incredible. God was doing for me what I could not do for myself. And with the alimony thing, the maintenance, if there's people here that have children, I love it when I get a call from a sponsee when it comes to matters of maintenance and paying money. She said, you know, the ex-girlfriend, the ex-wife, she's looking for money. She wants this for that, and she wants this for him, and does she not know what? Really, who's she? The cat's mother? Who are we talking about here? Who are we talking about here? Because she is none of my business. He is none of my business. Your ex-partner, your ex-wives, your ex-husbands, they ain't got anything to do with me. Have you got children that you need to be paying maintenance for? Are you paying the amount that you should be paying? Let's have that conversation, my friend. Let's get honest. Let's get willing. Let's have an open mind. Because see, she, her, he, him, the person that I believe has a name. Can we start talking about what your part in all of this is? What's your agreement? Are you fulfilling that? Because what's happening in their household is nothing to do with me. What is my conversation with you is, are you willing? Are you honest? And are you open-minded? Are you doing what you need to do to fulfill your financial agreement and arrange the best deal possible with the institution that is enforcing legally the money that you're required to pay? Let's talk about that. Because often when I get calls from sponsees about this type of thing, it's because, quite frankly, they're a bit miffed because they have to pay this money and they'd rather be going for a weekend away. Well, not my problem. Certainly it is your problem, because until you pay the maintenance or whatever, it's going to be a bigger problem if you don't. So see that wee weekend away that you're wanting to go on with your new girlfriend or your new boyfriend, park that one for the time being. Get the financial matters straight. Look after your family, who you haven't been able to do so because of your addiction, and now you're in a different space. Because when you do that and take the financial action and deal with the matter in hand and agree the best deal possible, you have no idea what's coming your way for you to have the weekends away or the beautiful life or whatever it is. And that example of a weekend away is a really stupid one, but it's the only one that's coming to mind right now. You think that you're shortchanged because you can't have the weekend away when you have to pay for the goodness of your beautiful children and all of that. Let's talk about that. Your life is on a different path. You're here to do God's work well. Your little plans and designs no longer matter. In step 3, you made the decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understood him. Don't get me wrong. Whilst I'm making all of these financial amends, I'm thinking, well, this month that's going out, that's going out, that's going out, that's going out, that's going out. All of my friends are going away for some beautiful trip for 4 days. I can't afford it. No, I can't. And that's okay. And the ability to sit with that and be okay with that is so freeing. I'm not placing myself in a position to cause more harm financially to myself. Do you know what I mean? I've got a different perspective on how these things operate. So when I talk to people and they're complaining about, oh, she's looking more money. No, he is looking for what is required legally by those authorities, Now, there's much more ins and outs to all of this stuff. I get that. It might not necessarily be straightforward. I'm not your financier, that's not what I'm here for. But the guiding principles are set out. And it goes on further to talk about that in the next couple of paragraphs, but we're going to finish on this paragraph because this is powerful. Powerful. So although these reparations, basically what it's saying is, although these amends take numerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. That's a really important line. We've talked about business acquaintances, the criminal offence, the person that threw us out of their office, the man that we hated. You may not, like I said at the top of the conversation, have any experience of any of the amends that are set out within the big book, but it doesn't matter. There's innumerable forms, but the general principles are there to guide us, no matter what the amends conversation is that's going to take place. Here's the golden nugget. Reminding ourselves that we have decided, we've made the decision in step 3 to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him. We have decided to go to any lengths. Does that little phrase remind you of anything? We've decided to go to any lengths. Page 14, any lengths for victory over alcohol. Page 76, the little reminder, go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. But here's where it starts to change, and often people miss this. It's now saying, as well as for any lengths for victory over alcohol, we have decided now that we're going to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. Your amends and these conversations is about you going out to do God's work well. End of the 7-step prayer. You're going out to do his bidding. You are not doing this for yourself. You are here to play the role that he has assigned you, and you are going out now to find spiritual experience after experience after experience after experience. These amends conversations are some of the most beautiful spiritual experiences and awakenings that I have ever had. We are now living, we're always living in this. Our life is a spiritual experience, but we're going out into these conversations to find more and more and more of this treasure. That's what this amends process is about. And we're not doing it by ourselves, because the next line tells us we ask a prayer. It's a prayer. Anywhere we are asking, as from page 58 onwards, we ask. There's about 5 prayers within these amends pages where we're asking. So we ask the power that is greater than ourselves, the God of your own understanding, that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position. I lost my position, as you know, from last week, or reputation, or face jail. But we are willing. Remember, willingness. We're not opposed to in mind. We are willing, because we're not doing this by ourselves. We have to be. We have to be willing. We must. And there's another must. There's no musts in AA. Is that right? Well, in the last half hour or so, we found 2 of them. There's 52 in total. But we must not shrink at anything. Full stop. Period. There you go. You shall not shrink at anything. No necessity for you to shrink, because there's something bigger than you at force. There's something bigger than you at play. We're praying for God's will for us and the power to carry that out as we're moving into soon, step 10, 11 and 12. You know, we're doing these step 9 as we're doing our step 10 as well. Might seem complicated right now. I'll explain that when we get to step 10. We grow where we're planted. Right now, we are asking, we're praying to be given the strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what. Honestly, amends, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. God is doing for you what you cannot do for yourself, and you are changing your life. You're changed through that process. Your life is being changed, and the people that you're sitting in front of, their life is being changed. And you don't know what God has in store for that other person by having this conversation. We're showing up. We're taking action, irrespective of the outcome. I'll leave it at that.